It's finally the 4th week where I enter into this Destiny 2 newbie guide, which means it's time to start talking about the things that you can actually do within Destiny. At this point, we've gone over things like weapon rarity, what kind of armor you should be looking out for when it comes to stats, and also an explanation of what kind of resources you can get in Destiny. But the thing I haven't mentioned yet is what you can actually do. If you haven't watched those videos already, then there is a link down in the comment section for you to go view the entire playlist, and you can start from wherever you want to. This is your season pass, so as of this recording, it is season 20, which is known as Season of Defiant. It could be season 21 by the time you're watching this, maybe even 22, who knows. But this is basically one of the main things you are going to be doing during the season, so even if you don't purchase the season pass, there are still rewards that you can go get up on the top line. So say, for example, if we go all the way to the start of the season pass, there is upgrade modules, glimmer, Eververse engrams, legendary shards, Bright Dust, all kind of manner of rewards that you can get as a free-to-play player. However, if you actually go ahead and buy the Season Pass, you get a second row of rewards, which is pretty much commonplace for any kind of Season Pass nowadays, because that is just how they work. There are a lot more rewards that come along with it. So you can get experience boosts, which are just passive, and they just accumulate as you go along. Like, for example, mine's maxed out, so I've got 32% experience boost. Not that I need it, because I'm rank 108 anyway. There's currency bonuses, which is like Glimmer and Legendary Shard dismantle bonuses. If you have a new exotic that you've just got the catalyst for, you can also get boosts to get their progress up quicker. There's a masterwork bonus, which basically allows you to get higher energy on your weapons and armor pieces, which basically means, like in the previous video when I talked about dismantling higher energy equipment, you would actually get a higher chance of getting more enhancement cores and prisms as well. There's also a Scrounger bonus, which allows an additional piece of seasonal gear to drop in various activities, whether this is Vanguard operations, Crucible, or Gambit, anything like that. It will just give you a greater chance of getting them. And then there's the War Table bonus, which is literally just a reputation bonus, so that's another nice passive thing to get as well. However, in the season passes as well, if you've actually paid the silver for it, there is always an ornament set that you can get, which is always fairly nicely designed in my opinion. Say, for example, this is just the Regalia kit that we've got for season 20, so I quite like the design of this armor as a general rule of thumb, but you can kind of see what they go for. It's just a seasonal one, which is based off what's actually happening. And there's always going to be a set for Warlocks, Hunters, and Titans. So if you actually made 3 characters, like I suggested in the first part of the newbie guide, then you will actually get 3 different cosmetic sets every time you complete a season pass. On top of this as well, there is always a lot of exotic engrams that you can get. So if you're very new to the game, this is a fantastic way to get loads of exotics really quickly. And the good thing about the season pass is there is a certain amount of exotics that are actually in the pool. So you can literally see down here, Monte Carlo, Arbalest, Thunderlord, Cerberus +1, Trinity Ghoul. It's basically an array of things you can look at. But these will basically unlock one by one as you redeem your exotic engrams, and there will always be something different if you haven't got them all unlocked. The minute you have gotten one of each one, you will actually start getting repeats, and they could possibly have higher stat rolls on the armor pieces, which is always good to look for. But that's enough about the season pass. Let's talk about something else that was recently added, which is called Guardian ranks. And this is kind of like an additional set of challenges that you can do, which complements the season pass quite nicely actually, because whilst you're passively earning experience for your season pass, you will actually have challenges to do here. So say, for example, I'm currently rank 7 in Elite, which I'm trying to get to rank 8. I just need to do one more weekly mission, and then I'll become a rank 8. But you can kind of see there's a few challenges to do, like complete the Lightfall campaign on Legendary difficulty, beat a Nightfall on Legend difficulty, even do a Lost Sector solo. So there is definitely like a skill curve that goes along with this, but at the same time, it wants you to do pretty much all the activities in the game. Even with the endgame stuff, it even tells you to run dungeons and also raids, so it's kind of encouraging you to do that in a sense. Obviously, the LFG system for Destiny isn't in the game yet, but when that's implemented, this will be a lot better and easier to do. But if I go all the way back to the start of the ranks, I can see basically what you guys would have, and that is literally a Guardian Rises, which is the new light quest. Highly recommend just going through that, as I pretty much mentioned in the previous parts as well. And this will actually get you up to rank 2, but when you go into rank 3, that's where you start earning your proper requirements. So for this, it looks like doing Lost Sectors on Nessus, doing patrols, exploring Nessus in general, as well as the EDZ and Neptune as well. So as a rule of thumb, it's letting you get out and explore the world and just do your own thing at this point, which is very good. But those 2 things aren't the only things to look at when you're doing things in Destiny, because there is also something called seasonal challenges. Now, seasonal challenges can vary in what they ask you to do, but generally there's a few themed around the seasonal content, and then there's always going to be one for Vanguard operations, always one for the Crucible, always one for Gambit, and then normally there's one that is relating to the campaign or something to do with champions or Nightfalls. And there's always nearly a location area which is asking you to do patrols and public events and things like that. But the main thing for these seasonal challenges is that it's always going to give you a large amount of experience. So Let's just take, for example, the Rift one, because I don't want to play Rift in the slightest, but it's still there. You get something called Challenger XP Plus, and this is equivalent to around 1 season rank level, I believe, if not a bit less. But it also rewards you with a small amount of Bright Dust, and the whole point for you doing these seasonal challenges is if you can do, I think 72, according to this one, you will actually get rewarded with a large pile of Bright Dust, and I think it was around 3,000 Bright Dust last time I got this, so whether that's changed or not, I'm not entirely sure, but it's a large amount of Bright Dust to actually get, and it will contribute quite nicely to you getting cosmetics if you wish to get more. But then obviously there are challenges like this one, which is absolutely stunning, and it's just stun 50 champions. It's Challenger XP+++, and this is roughly equivalent to 2 or 3 levels, so it is quite a sizable amount of experience to get. There's even more that you can do when it comes to Destiny, because whilst you have seasonal challenges, you have the Guardian ranks, and you have bounties as a general rule of thumb, as well as the Season Pass. You can actually go and get titles, which are also known as seals, but these are basically going to be your end game kind of goals, because some seals are really hard to get, whereas some of them are just really easy. So if I was going to give you an example, this one's called the Conqueror title, and while it does sound really cool, its requirement is very nasty. It requires you to complete 6 different Grandmaster Nightfalls. And if you don't know what Grandmaster difficulty is, it is basically the hardest difficulty master, even harder than it needed to be. But it is a very rewarding experience to do, and you can get adept weapons by doing this, so it is definitely worth it if you want to try doing some of the hardest endgame content in the game. Obviously, there's another requirement of doing it with all 4 subclasses, so you can't just stick to one build and go for everything. Getting champions in Nightfall Strikes, you can do that even without Grandmaster difficulty, so that's a fairly straightforward step for anybody. And the same goes for the high score in Strikes as well. But do not despair, because with every DLC or season, there comes another seal. So there is one for Lightfall, and there is also one for Season of Defiance. So if I just go to the Season of the Defiance one quickly, it's called Queen's Guard. It will show you a bunch of triumphs that you need to get for Season of Defiance. And this is normally the same kind of idea, just repeated over. So Unbowed Unbent is actually just the We Stand Unbroken questline, which is the main story of the season, so if you just do the story, you'll get this triumph anyway. And then there's also additional things like generating favors, which currently for this season is what you do when you're doing the activities. Defeating champions is also normally a criteria that appears. And there's also the Control Alt Complete, which is actually the exotic quest for the Vex Caliber, but that's something more in depth. I'm pretty sure if you look around YouTube for a bit of a guide on Vex Caliber, then you will know exactly what this is about. But because this is a newbie guide, I'm not going to go into too much depth about it. But there's always normally something that requires a bit of skill as well, like for example the Defiant Battlegrounds. You need to run each one on Legend difficulty, which if you're doing this solo, is fairly tough, but if you have a fire team of 3, it will make things a lot easier and smoother for you. And the DLC's titles are pretty much the same. It's just going to have an additional thing known as badges, which you unlock badges by getting every single armor piece for one class, every single weapon that you can get from the DLC, as well as ships and sparrows that you can get within the DLC as well. So if I were to show you Lightfall's one very quickly, it's down here called Neomuni Souvenirs. You can literally see I've got the ship, the shader, the emblems, one full set of armor, the 3 exotics that came out with the Lightfall DLC, and then all the legendary weapons as well, and that is a completion. But as you can see, if I go over to the Warlocks, I'm missing the helmet, and then the Titans, I'm also missing the helmet. But I still have this badge anyway because I've completed it with one class. So I'd highly recommend just having a look through these seals and see if there's any that you want to take on as you play the game. Because despite the fact that there's a lot of requirements for these seals, there's a high chance you'll unlock most of the seal progress just by playing the game passively anyway. And finally, just before I end the video, we have another new thing which came in Season 20, which is called Commendations, which you're probably going to get very familiar with if you have just started the game. But these are pretty much just a community thing, and the only thing it's going to have an impact on is your Guardian ranks, because on certain ranks, you will require a certain amount of score from the Commendations to go up a rank. And Commendations you can get from pretty much any activity, so let's say you're running a Vanguard Strike or a Battlegrounds, you can get Thoughtful, but you can also get something called Joybringer, and it is basically just a bit description of what you want to reward them with. It's entirely up to you if you want to reward people with the description for these, but as a rule of thumb, I think people just assign them randomly because it's just something there to do at the end of the strike. So it's basically left to you on how you want to give these out, but I would definitely recommend you do it at the end of every activity that you can, because this also rewards your own score by giving them out to other players. But that is pretty much it in a nutshell. That is a lot talked about in this video, and there is still a lot more to talk about, which I'm going to go over in the next part, which is going to be exploring the world, the bounties in more depth, and I'm also going to go over the artifacts as well, because I haven't actually touched on that yet, so it would be a good time to do so. But that is going to be everything for the video. If this guide is helpful, then let me know down in the comments below and leave a like on the video. But for now, I shall see you all in the next one.